Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite from May 17th, 2023. And it was a big day. Warner Brothers Discovery had their upfronts and they launched officially AEW Collision. So we're going to go through the big reveal. Then we're going to talk about some of the, some of the controversy. Since we've been talking about Collision for a while, it's kind of been a subject that I've kind of beat with a drum again and again. And I feel like I would have to say the same thing over and over again. But for people who aren't regular listeners, I'm going to say it probably for the last time, hopefully. For people who are new, here's my opinion on AEW Collision. It is good that they're getting more time on Warner Brothers Discovery Networks. That's an unequivocal good. The bad is that they put it on a Saturday night, a night where there's sports. Saturday is a huge sports night. It is college basketball, college football, the NFL, the NBA. There's movies, weekends, people going outside generally. Saturday is a big date night. There's a lot of stuff happening on Saturdays. So that kind of tells you that this show may very quickly become a B show. And it doesn't really matter that much, considering they just wanted the extra content. So that's fine. So I'm looking at it saying, what is a reasonable expectation of success for a Saturday show? And that's just kind of was my thoughts going into this before I started, before it was even fully announced. But now that the full announcement has been made, let's go into the press release that they put out. And by they, I mean Warner Brothers Discovery and AEW. For starters, at the top of the press release is the logo for Saturday Collision. And it is using the Monday Night Nitro colors. And, okay, I'm not so sure trying to be the reincarnated ghost of WCW is the right thing to do. But this is something that AEW's been playing with for a long time, as they've been trying to play off the tradition of pro wrestling on TBS and TNT. But you should be trying to create a wholly new product. But all right, let's move on. It says a wholly new product, but here is the press release. It says TNT launches a second night of wrestling with AEW Collision, featuring headliners Thunder Rosa, Miro, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Andrade El Idolo. Look at me on Saturday, June 17th. So it says, let's see, it says, in 4 years following the launch of AEW Dynamite, AEW's footprint has more than doubled across TNT and TBS, along with AEW Dynamite, Friday Night's Rampage, the recent following documentary, AEW All Access, and now AEW Collision. TBS and TNT delivered the best matches and most entertainment moments of professional wrestling today. AEW has reached 23 million total viewers so far this year across all of its shows on TBS and TNT. Now, believe it or not, they actually put the citation for that 23 million viewers. They put it in the press release. We'll talk about it once the press release is over. But I do want people to realize that they are indeed claiming 23 million viewers. So, Jason Sarlanis, the president of Turner Networks, Linear and Streaming, he says, we're doubling down on wrestling with AEW Collision, which gives fans 2 more hours every week. AEW's roster of talent has expanded so quickly that we felt it needed another night to bring our audience the epic rivalries, unforgettable matches, and stars they love to watch. Adding Collision to our programming mix on TNT will allow us to satisfy the massive demand we felt from our hardcore fan base and be the ultimate complement to AEW Dynamite on TBS. With the addition of, here's Tony Khan. With the addition of AEW Collision on TNT, I'm extremely proud that a Turner network will be the home of Saturday Night Wrestling for the first time in more than 2 decades. The debut of Collision is significant across numerous sectors, including television, wrestling, entertainment, and sports, and reinforces AEW as the bold property we envisioned when we launched in 2019. Collision will deliver live every Saturday night More of what fans and viewers tell us they want: athleticism, big personalities, exciting storylines, and hard-hitting wrestling action, all of which have become synonymous with AEW. Then it goes into the about section when it comes to TNT and AEW. So now, the citation given for the 23 million viewers, this is absolutely laughable, but this is the citation. The citation is from December 26, 2022 to March 26, 2023, the P2 plus, so I guess that means the 18 to 49 demographic, 1 minute qualifier includes all plays of AEW Dynamite, AEW Rampage, AEW Battle of the Belts, and AEW All Access. So if you watch even 1 minute of any of those products, you are counted in this 23 million viewers. Even if you saw 1 minute and never saw this show again. Even if you saw 1 minute of this by accident. Even if you stumbled across this, saw Chris Jericho, laughed at how he looked, and then turned the channel. Even if you watched this show and wondered why a small man was on TV talking and not blinking, they counted you and as part of their viewership. Now, this is the equivalent of WWE counting the janitors and the people working in the bathrooms at the arenas as part of their attendance. Okay, it is the exact same thing. All right, so they're trying to figure out if you even acknowledge that AEW exists, you are counted as one of the 23 million viewers. So if you watch 50 minutes of the show, 50 seconds of the show and change the channel, you don't count. But if you watch 62 seconds, oh boy, you're an AEW diehard. This is ridiculous. But we knew that this was what they do because WrestleNomics, believe it or not, actually exposed them before for doing this. Kudos to WrestleNomics for having some level of integrity and exposing that these guys are counting people who probably didn't even watch the show on purpose and who likely were watching Big Bang Theory and literally got wrapped up and, washing dishes or something like that and Dynamite came on. But what was missing from that press release? Well, there was no talk of money. There was no talk of a contract extension. There was no talk of any kind about how this is going to affect AEW's business. It's going to add more operating costs, but, again, there was no talk of money. So we'll see. But that didn't stop anybody, mainly Wade Keller, who a couple of days ago put out this. The wrestling media says, quote, Wade Keller of PW Torch, AEW's new deal with Warner Bros. Discovery is expected to be worth $240 million per year for 5 years, making the total sum $1.2 billion. Keller noted a likely content agreement for HBO Max. All In could air on Max in the U.S. to avoid the promotion running 2 pay-per-views in 7 days. So, Wade Keller just jumped out just said, hey, I know that some nobody on the Wrestling Observer newsletter board said $1 billion because it was just $200 million per year. He says, why stop there? I'm going to go with $240 million over 5 years. I mean, I feel like we're playing The Price is Right. Is somebody going to show up and say, well, I say $240 million and 30 cents. These people have no idea what they're talking about. They're just dumping stuff out. So let's say, for instance, that this was true. If it was true, it would be tremendous. And I guarantee you that if they were doing that, they were generating $1.2 billion from television. Tony Khan would be on TV talking about it. It would have been in the press release. It would have been everywhere had that become reality. If that story was real, it would be one of the first things Tony Khan would have ever tweeted about. He'd have been so excited. He never would have shut the hell up about it. And it'd be everywhere. Unfortunately, it was not true. Unfortunately, PW Insider, they had to actually reach out to some people at Warner Bros. Discovery. And here's what they said. from, I think this is Mike Johnson. Perhaps even more interesting is that there was no media rights renewal announced today. PWInsider.com is told by a source at Warner Bros. Discovery that there was never, ever a plan for either side to announce a new deal between AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery. There had been rampant speculation online about a deal between the two sides being worth as high as $1.5 billion. But beyond that speculation, there has never been any inkling from either AEW or Warner Bros. Discovery that a new rights agreement had been locked in, much less was going to be officially announced today. So, well, there goes the neighborhood on that one. Let's be honest though. AEW will likely make some more money on this show. They absolutely have to. A live wrestling show is expensive. If they're going to do a second live show, then they should get more money. Now, the amount of money people were yelling about, 1 billion, 1.5 billion, no, I don't know about all that. But they're likely going to get something because this is going to be an increase in costs. And you're going to have to pay more talent. I'm assuming, of course, that they're not going to populate Dynamite and Collision with the same talent. Now, I'm not saying that there's going to be a brand split. What I'm saying is that they specified certain people like Miro, like Andrade, for Collision. All right? So there's likely going to be more talent. And if AEW is doing what I heard Tony Khan does, which is he's the one flying all the talent out, and he's helping them travel and everything, and he's putting them up in hotels and all that stuff. He's coming out of pocket for that stuff. That's expensive. Okay, if he has to pay for the production team, and he's paying to fly these guys all over the world, and he's paying for the arena, that's a lot of money. And I would imagine he's getting some of that back from Warner Brothers. He has to. It would be terrible business for him to be putting together another live wrestling show only for it to be for no extra money. I don't believe that. That's just terrible business. Okay. So likely they're going to get some kind of increase. They're going to do some kind of business, but Warner Brothers Discovery is in cost cutting mode, and they have been for about a year now. So the increase is always going to be up to what Warner Brothers can afford. And it's not like AEW has a lot of options. They just don't have a lot of options in terms of where they can pull that money from, unless they partner with a streaming service. There's not a lot of options when it comes to cable television. Now, with all of this stuff came yet another controversy. That controversy being, what about your boy Phillip Brooks? Where's CM Punk? Everybody's heard that he's coming back, but is he going to be on AEW Collision? Now, apparently, there was a press release that was put out that had CM Punk's name on it. It was then retracted in a statement Warner Brothers gave to comicbook.com. No doubt it was probably a spoiler, and then they took it off. Hopefully nobody will see it. They forgot, of course, that wrestling fans are into the weeds. They're absolutely into every grain of sand about wrestling. There's some people who are super wrestling fans that they know if a wrestler makes a cameo in a B movie, they know about it. So comicbook.com, let's go talk about this new situation here. So it says, Warner Bros. Discovery might have let the cat out of the bag regarding CM Punk and AEW Collision on Wednesday. The weekly Saturday night show was unveiled during the WBD Warner Bros. Discovery upfront presentations. It says, however, the presentation, press release, and official poster all came and went without so much of a mention as Punk. However, Warner Bros. Discovery then sent out a press release, email to media outlets recapping the upfront presentation with links to all of their major announcements. The one for Collision read as follows. TNT launches a second night of wrestling, AEW Collision, featuring headliners CM Punk, Thunder Rosa, Miro, Samoa Joe, and Powerhouse Hobbs. The link they have a hyperlink to the next one. And it says, Comic Book reached out to Warner Bros. Discovery and was told, quote, CM Punk is not affiliated with TNT's AEW Collision. More than likely, they got a little excited and they dropped his name and then they had to retract it. I don't think it's going to be because he's not going to be involved in the show. I just think that they weren't supposed to say anything. And that's just me being a little bit positive, you know. I do think CM Punk is returning to AEW. Whether he will actually be on Collision or not, who the hell knows? And, you know, there's some good in not knowing. You know, gives you something to watch. Now, I know we already eviscerated Wade Keller for his ridiculous $1.4 billion thing, but he put out an article with this same subject. You know, with the same time he put out an article talking about the TV deal and all this kind of stuff and what it means for AEW. He put out some thoughts that I think that we all should talk about, because I think that this is pretty good. Here's some critiques that Wade Keller has of this AEW Collision thing. We're just going to ignore that he was completely and totally wrong on the financials. So he says, quote, AEW's booking will be spread thin, and that's already a weak point in my view. And he says Tony Khan's booking is too often paper thin, with an over-reliance on star rating, thrill of the action, less on nuance and layered character development. His quote-unquote gray area with heels and faces feels more scattershot than some philosophical stand against moral, clear-cut portrayals of wrestlers earning cheers versus earning boos with clear, consistent constitutions guiding their actions and attitudes. Matches are often thrown together with a contrived, rushed interaction during a backstage interview, rather than built over the course of several weeks in a more organic, less formulaic manner. Does that become more of a problem with 40% more TV time to fill? Now, this is just one of his critiques, but this is actually pretty damn good. I am a huge proponent of black hats and white hats in pro wrestling. I don't believe in areas of gray. I think that, you know, only shows that have really good writing can get away with areas of gray, with stuff like The Wire or stuff like The Sopranos or, you know, shows like that. You have to be a certain kind of really talented writer to get away with the morally gray characters, you know. Otherwise, you're better off sticking with good guys and bad guys. It's a simpler story to tell, and it's what wrestling fans are used to. It's what wrestling fans want. It's what wrestling fans are interested in. A lot of people, if you read a lot of more of the hoity-toity academics and maybe even some of the journalists, when they talk about wrestling, they talk about it being a morality play. You know, how can good overcome this evil? You know, a guy pulling the tights, throwing salt in his eyes or whatever. You lose that aspect of it when you throw away the concept of good and evil. You know, you throw that away. And it's clear that Tony Khan simply isn't a good enough booker or a good enough writer to have a show that does not have clear-cut good guys and bad guys. And I agree with this when it comes to WWE too. The better you stick to the original formula, the better you are. You know, Booker T said it probably the best. You know, wrestling is doing everything everybody else does, just a little bit differently. And I forget who said it, but you can't be original, but you can be unique. You can do things in an original way. That's like when it comes to the Attitude Era. There weren't that many shades of gray when it comes to the Attitude Era. All right. Stone Cold Steve Austin was still a babyface because Vince McMahon was a horrible heel who had his daughter kidnapped. I'm sorry. Like, you may think that there is shades of gray in the Attitude Era, but there wasn't. Okay. There was clear-cut good guys and bad guys. Big Boss Man feeding a guy his dog. There was no shade of gray to that. All right. Making fun of a guy whose father passed away. There was no shade of gray to that. The shade of gray may come in between the transition points where you have a guy like Vince McMahon going from being a heel at one point to being a babyface later on, or from vice versa, like The Rock or something like that, or Mick Foley. But generally speaking, you need good guys and bad guys. You need to be able to tell the audience who to cheer and who to boo, because that's part of your story. Just like when they put out a Batman movie, the Joker isn't going to be just as good of a good guy as Batman. Because, you know, some people are fans of the Joker. Like, no, that's not how this works. And everybody knows that. So stop trying to reinvent the wheel. And this is not just Tony Khan, but it's all the wrestling promoters who keep getting this idea that they can just, oh, I can throw away good guys and bad guys. We don't need that. It's like, yes, you do. You don't have a story without it. People don't know who to cheer for. People don't know why they're cheering for somebody. You have to show them. That's how you get people emotionally invested. You know, that's just one point, and I think it's very good. Here's a second point. Talent will be featured more often and could be overexposed. It says this seems like less of an issue than the first point. As I'd argue, a lot of wrestlers from top tier to the bottom tier aren't featured on TV consistently enough. That said, if TK's response to the increased workload is to fall back on, quote, internet darlings and dream matchups that super serve people reading articles like this and hitting refresh on Twitter and Reddit on any AEW topic, that could lead to more viewers feeling left out and disinterested in wrestlers they don't know well or are fighting for an issue that either don't exist or is summarized merely by Excalibur's heavy lifting on commentary. More time needs to be spent cultivating personas and storylines for more wrestlers so that AEW isn't just giving double doses of TK's favorites doing the same thing twice a week instead of once a week. So he's essentially calling for a brand split. He's saying that, hey, we don't need to see MJF twice. You know, MJF is cool on Dynamite. Give us somebody else on Saturday, or you can give us somebody else on Dynamite. Give us MJF on Saturday. I get that. And I get that some people you don't need to see more than once, you know, and this is why I've been a big fan of the brand split in WWE over the years. Is sometimes when somebody is a star, they already eat up a lot of TV time. To then give them twice the amount of time a week to eat up, you're basically screwing everybody else. I mean, that's common sense, but you're also screwing the wrestler that you're showing on the show twice. Now, here's a good example, and it's a recent example, and that example is the Usos. When the Usos were almost exclusively on SmackDown, people loved them. Once they started wrestling on SmackDown and Raw, pretty much every single week, people was like, okay, maybe we got a little too much of the Usos. It was fine for a certain part of the Bloodline storyline to bleed over into Raw. That was good. Then it didn't stop. So now people, and it didn't take long for people to start saying, okay, too much Bloodline. We got too much going on. Let's scale it back. I want to see other people sometimes, you know? And I hear you from screaming from your internet, but nobody had that attitude about Austin and The Rock. Nobody cared that they were on TV twice a week. Look, that was 25 years ago and you were a kid. All right. I guarantee you there is a such thing as you are overexposed, and every big star throughout history knew that. That's why they didn't go to every town. That's why they weren't on TV every week. That's why you didn't see the champion on TV every week, because they knew that you could be overexposed. You could be seen too much and people will lose interest in you. Tony Khan is, I think, smart enough that even if he's not, he's going to listen to the people who are going to tell him you can be overexposed, and you don't want to overexpose your talent. So what you want to do is you might not want to do a hard brand split, but you do want to feature certain stories on certain shows to make it easier to follow, certain stars on certain shows to make it easier to follow. And I think he's smart enough to do that. At least I hope so, because, you know, that people being overexposed is very, very annoying. Here is his third point. TV event arena attendance could suffer. So he says, with diminished attendance in many markets on repeat visits, AEW could be facing burnout in more and more cities. Whether the Saturday show is taped on Thursdays or takes place live on Saturdays, it's another city getting another AEW event each week. It's likely some of these fans won't want to attend twice as often over the course of each year. There's only so many cities to visit with regular TV events with arenas that look major league. Will crowds diminish over time, and will it start to affect the energy in the arenas and the visuals that give the show a major league vibe. He says, will most of the top stars appear on one show, giving the fans only half the top stars to see in person in exchange for their ticket money? Or will AEW do more dark matches, quote unquote, so top stars aren't overexposed on TV twice a week, but at least live fans in the arenas get to see most of their favorites thanks to off-TV main events, as WWE has done for decades. Now, this is another good critique, because you're saying this is what could happen if you essentially create a brand split, or if over time, now this is actually going to be over time, people learn that one show is more important than the other. This has been something that has plagued Rampage for over a year now. People know Rampage is not that important, so a lot of people start going home. Now, more people go home sometimes than other times, but usually there's people who are very, very interested in Rampage, therefore they stick around. Usually other people get up and they leave. That's why people don't watch Rampage on TV, because they're like, okay, none of these people are going to matter. This show doesn't matter. Nothing on this show is going to matter. And therefore, it becomes a never-ending cycle of it becomes a B show because people view it as a B show because it's treated like a B show. So that's one thing. Another thing is a good critique when it comes to attendance. AEW, I think a lot of people go to the shows because, hey, it's going to be in our market and it's not going to be here for a while. But if you come back pretty regularly, this is one of the things with Las Vegas and Chicago and some places, New York, where they run these markets pretty often. So you are looking at diminishing returns if you're now running twice a week. All right, let's finish this up with this last part here. There are other concerns and questions going into this expanded content scenario, such as whether Rampage's viewership will decline even more to the point of not even being worth the time, or whether the wrestlers will be asked to wrestle more often and suffer more injuries, thus depleting the roster of key names. Most of these issues can be addressed though, but AEW has to be aware these actually are potential problems and then devise strategies to overcome them with a lack of denial that they are actually problems. Develop a deeper support team, which I've heard from people in AEW is one of their top wishes. Learning from their past mistakes and being open to new approaches to the overall booking approach. It says throwing matches that would be otherwise on Rampage or Dark to pad Dynamite and Collision each week, booking the same wrestlers twice as often, or lengthening the key matches to fill TV time could all backfire. Both of AEW's signature shows need to feel as substantial and worth viewers' times as Dynamite currently does. That can be done, but just adding more wrestlers into the mix isn't sufficient. The booking needs to be better. Booking, by the way, in this TV rights fee-based era, isn't merely matchmaking. It's having a strong team in place to present new ideas and concepts while also storyboarding and pacing storylines over weeks with coherent and compelling interactions between wrestlers that don't feel like convoluted, quote, first takes or contrived amateur hour skits, which AEW suffers from all too often. I think that all was very good. That was all a very good critique. He continues, says, AEW has the budget to acquire a handful of new wrestlers, including disgruntled WWE wrestlers who are looking for a better push or a fresh start, along with just about any indie or international star TK feels would be a good fit for AEW. But signing someone that fans on Twitter tell TK is wonderful is not a substitute for introducing them to the majority of AEW TV viewers whose knowledge of them and investment in those wrestlers is cursory at best. Even fans who know who these wrestlers are before signing with AEW need hooks to keep them on their AEW journey that goes beyond novel matchups against AEW wrestlers in dazzling high spot field matches. That's a really good critique too. Like, he's not saying it. I saw a lot of people saying he was being negative about this, and it's like, this is not negative. This is actually good criticism. You know, he's saying, look, you got to do better. You have to be smarter. This is more TV time, so you have to use it wisely. You know, you can hire more talent, you know, or you could try to utilize the talent that you have. But this doesn't mean that we're guaranteed a new 15-minute best friends match If it means that, then you could kill this thing dead. You could shoot it with an arrow and I watch it bleed to death. But if it means, hey, we're going to go out and get better wrestlers and we're going to get more talent, that's fine. If this means that Sonny Kiss is going to make a return to TV, no. If this means that this shit is going to be half Ring of Honor, half dark, all garbage, I'm not interested. But ultimately, I don't see a problem with anything that Wade Keller said. And so this is all that I got on AEW in terms of AEW Collision. Now let's get into our review of AEW Dynamite. All right, let's talk about this Dynamite show. So they went a little bit episodic with this one by having guys show up multiple times, which was a positive because Double or Nothing really needed the push, and they really did a good job of actually pushing Double or Nothing this week. Too bad a lot of the stuff that was going on was not stuff that interests me. Anyway, Wardlow starts the show. He's dressed like a normal dad that has been out mowing his lawn. He calls out Christian, saying that he wants Christian to do all the things he said he was going to do last week. So Christian moseyed on out there with Luchasaurus in tow, got in Wardlow's face because he doesn't respect him at all. Then they had some words, and Christian looked like he was going to spit on Wardlow. Wardlow then grabbed Christian by the throat, and then the fight began. Christian and Luchasaurus beat up Wardlow, and then they introduced a ladder where they hit him with the ladder, chokeslam him through the ladder, a bunch of stuff through the ladder. Later on in the show, Arn Anderson approached Wardlow, threw the ice pack away from him because he's not allowed to look weak in any way in Arn's presence. Arn says, so you've seen what he can do. Now what are you willing to do? So Wardlow decided to up the ante and challenge Christian to a ladder match. Because Christian is one of those 4 guys who was famous for the ladder match. So Christian, Wardlow, their first match ever is going to be a ladder match. My only hope would be that this match was chosen so Christian could win without pinning Wardlow. But something tells me Christian's not going to win. And to be quite honest, Christian shouldn't win. Christian has been tremendous in this role, but Wardlow is not one of those guys I think he should be going over. That's just me, though. I know, just he's hot and no homo, but he's hot. He's really on fire right now as a character, but I don't think he should be beating Wardlow. Sorry, sad to tell you. But Christian was once again pretty good. Wardlow is all right. He's just coming across as very normal. He just seems well adjusted. Like he's got no hang-ups whatsoever. Like, you got to be slightly psychotic to be his size in the wrestling business. I mean, that's the only way it works. You either got to be a super egotist, like, the recently departed superstar Billy Graham, or you got to be an absolute maniac, like, Ultimate Warrior. There's just no middle ground when you're that jacked. If you just come across as, a character from King of the Hill, but you're jacked, that's weird, And Wardlow comes out there dressed like a Strickland propane customer. I don't know what's going on with this guy. Match 1, Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin defeat Lee Moriarty and Big Bill. This match was a mess. Look, everybody likes Darby Allin because of what he can do. Orange Cassidy in the first match of the show, as usual. In this match, I forgot because we were told the firm has been deleted. And Stokely Carmichael has gone into hiding. He's been missing. Nobody's seen him since. This, of course, means that they lost the final or firm deletion match at the Hardy compound, which I legit tried to watch, but I just couldn't get into it. I don't remember anything that happened outside of Matt Hardy's son did moves on these guys. I don't remember anything else that happened. To me, the broken Matt Hardy thing seems to have run its course. I know some people will say it ran its course a long time ago. It was in its purest form in TNA. Every other iteration has come across as being watered down. The WWE version, of course, was nowhere near the TNA version. And then the AEW version is just a last gasp. It's like a poorly made trilogy. In any event, now that the firm has broken up, Big Bill and Lee Moriarty have decided they're still going to hang around each other for reasons unknown. And they managed to lose a tag team match together. I heard such great things about Lee Moriarty, that he was so good and he was so great. I haven't seen none of that stuff yet. This guy's been on AEW TV for months now. I haven't seen the good and the great about this guy yet. He's just kind of a skinny technical wrestler. Thank God for that. Moving on, Orange Cassidy says that he's willing to fight anybody after he was asked about Carl Fletcher. Is it? Well, what is his name? It's not Carl. Kyle Fletcher. That's his NXT name. Kyle Fletcher, that guy. Orange Cassidy says anybody who wants a title shot should come see Tony Khan about it. They come back a few minutes later, and Orange Cassidy finds out that 20 people have challenged him to international championship matches, to which Orange Cassidy says he accepts them all. And since it's Las Vegas, let's make it 21. A 21 Blackjack Battle Royal for the International Championship. They're turning Orange Cassidy into Roman Reigns, apparently. Because, Roman Reigns did the one versus all Royal Rumble match, which I actually kind of enjoyed. With the debut of AJ Styles, you all remember that. The one Dean Ambrose should have won. That would have been nice, but they gave it to Triple H. I mean, that's a kick in the balls, right? Yikes. I mean, the story was right there, for fuck's sake. Dean Ambrose was the last man in the tournament when Roman won the championship. Then Sheamus comes in. They do the whole Money in the Bank thing, but Sheamus is not a long-term opponent, so they take the title off of him. And then they do the one versus all thing, and instead of recruiting Dean Ambrose or doing something with him in order to make that storyline work, they gave it to Triple H. Yikes. Yikes. But there's no Triple H here. They don't have that level of talent in AEW. But I do believe that this will be the time for Orange Cassidy to lose the title without actually getting pinned or submitted. He's probably going to get jobbed out by a team of people or something like that. And he's likely going to be the guy who's going to end up wrestling MJF for the world title down the line. But the Blackjack continues the AEW thing of gambling. Gambling, casinos, casino battle royals, roulette, etc. I get the theme. Can't wait for the Nikki Santoro street fight. Better yet, the Nikki Santoro buried alive match. Oh boy. Yeah, that's fucked up. Anyway, let's move on. Sammy Guevara defeats some guy named Exodus Prime who had weird lizard eyes. Okay. He's a Jobberello. It doesn't matter. His match is like 42 seconds. Afterwards, Sammy Guevara decides to cut a babyface promo saying that he's not perfect, he's made mistakes, and he's grew up in front of us. Saying that he took a couple of wrong turns, but it always led him to the right place, and that he's always going to listen to his heart. He's going to listen to the shit that you can't teach. And he got a pretty good babyface reaction, mainly because he's in his hometown. He's in Texas, where he's from. This boils over into the Darby Allin promo later when he says that winning his match earlier with a headlock takeover was a message to MJF that this is the biggest match of all of their careers. Sammy Guevara interrupted, saying that he respects Darby Allin, that he's going to take his advice. He's not going to lay down for MJF, and that one of them needs to take the title from MJF, and then said, may the best man win. To which Darby somehow, for some reason, buys into this. And, okie dokie. Later, Roosh is wrestling Jungle Boy in a match that I was deeply concerned was I knew Jungle Boy was going to win. I just didn't know how he was going to win. And that was the way where I was kind of like, because when he got the snare trap into Roosh, I said to myself, if Roosh submits to Jungle Boy, I am going to flip my shit. But then again, they did it another way. A roll up with a pull of the tights. Jungle Boy wins. Match was solid enough. Didn't help Roosh to do the job here, but it didn't hurt him either, really. Because Jungle Boy kind of cheated. At one point during this match, Jungle Boy took an insane bump on the floor. Just an absolutely nutty bump to the floor. I don't get why he did that. That probably wasn't a smart idea, but he did it. So he did it. After the match, Harush and his boys jumped Jungle Boy. Darby Allin tried to come out there and make the save, ended up getting his ass kicked too. And then Sammy Guevara came out there to make the save. So Sammy saves Darby, who saved Jungle Boy. And the crowd kind of likes Sammy Guevara because, he's in his hometown. He's in Texas. MJF is watching this with eyes that looks like he hasn't been to sleep in 2 months. Renee asked him how he feels, and he slapped the microphone out of her hand because that means he's mad. If you hadn't noticed, he's mad. He's big mad. This Four Pillars thing is not working out. I mean, I swear to God, this doesn't feel like a pay-per-view main event. This feels like an Intercontinental Championship match from 2003. That's what it feels like. When they was just rebooting the title. None of these guys, even MJF now, doesn't feel like a top shelf main event act. Just none of them do. Even collectively, they don't feel like top shelf main event acts. But I will say this. If they stick with Sammy Guevara as a babyface, at least there will have been some character development in this whole thing. But it depends on whether this thing is going to stick or not. Sammy Guevara realizing that he's got to stop being a flunky is a good character development. But only if he, one, stops being a flunky, and two, stops talking about his fucking dreams. And, actually have a personality outside of being a silly flunky. He hasn't developed a personality yet, but he is growing out of his flunky stage, which is good. I don't mind that. So at least there's been some character development here. Next, Jarrett and Lethal, they're coming down to the ring. Then FTR Ball and his buddy shoves the big Indian guy off the stage through a table. I was like, wow, that was crazy. How fortuitous that table was there. How fortuitous. Then the fight happens in which FTR Ball strips Jay Lethal's pants off, which I'm surprised is not going to get Jay Lethal sued for sexual harassment again. Anyway, I'm sorry, Ring of Honor got sued for sexual harassment. Jay Lethal was just a guy who, no, I shouldn't go into that. Let's not go into that. Let's get back on course. FTR Ball is whipping, Lethal with his belt, and the fight ensues. Everything boils down until Karen Jarrett hits, I think it was FTR hair in the nuts from behind. We didn't need Karen Jarrett. We really did not need Karen Jarrett. We were fine without Karen Jarrett. Karen Jarrett, without you, we were doing just fine. Don't need you. Don't want you. But here she is. Team TNA is becoming more TNA by the day. Good Lord. Good Jesus Christ. This stuff is so TNA. Of course, we didn't touch on the Mark Briscoe thing, so we don't know if he's okay, whether he survived that power driver or not. I guess we'll have to wait till the pay-per-view to figure that out. Next, the Outcast defeats Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida. Jamie Hayter was pulled from the match mere hours before it happened because of her arm injury. But which fortuitously, another coincidence that they pulled Saraya. So Saraya didn't have to wrestle, and she just got to be at ringside. So Britt Baker is pinned by Toni Storm in this match. It was a mess. This match felt like it was an absolute mess. Too bad. So next, we got Toni Storm. She's cutting a promo backstage. She's won 4 matches in 5 days or something, they said. And that she's on a run like no one else. And she says that Jamie Hayter doesn't come out there. She hasn't seen Jamie Hayter do what she's doing. And that she's not the same Toni Storm who lost the title. And she wants a rematch. So she challenged Jamie Hayter to a championship match at Double or Nothing. We're going to assume, and I think that is pretty much, if you challenge somebody in AEW, there's no question that they accepted it. So, Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. That's fine. I don't mind that. Well, that was something. Tony Khan ran down the Collision tour where they will be making stops for Collision, but he didn't say where they were going to be debuting. despite all the hubbub on the internet, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Chicago where CM Punk returns. The big news out of this is that Tony Khan actually blinked. He blinked about 3 or 4 times. So in the entirety of the times that he's been on TV, he's actually started blinking. I don't know what that means. And should we be concerned that Tony Khan is now starting to blink? Was that before he went on a bender? Or, how does that work? Anyway, 4th match, Falls Count Anywhere, Jericho, Roderick Strong at the top of the hour. This match was fun when they were fighting in the stairwell on top of that little thing right above the stairs. That was kind of fun. But of course, we all knew what was going to happen. They ended up outside where the heels attacked Roderick Strong because they like to cheat and all that kind of stuff. But wait a minute. I'm getting word that didn't happen. That instead, the baby faces didn't follow the rules. And it was the baby faces who attacked the heel 2-on-1. So Roderick Strong won the match, pinning Chris Jericho on a mound of dirt. Well, okie dokie. I guess so. If that's the direction you chose to go. What does this do for Roderick Strong? He beat Chris Jericho, does nothing for him. Because now he's not going anywhere. He's not feuding with anybody. So, Jericho just dropped a match to Roderick Strong. So it doesn't mean shit when he loses to Adam Cole. Sure, Adam Cole cost him that match, but you would think they would have saved the pinfall for Adam Cole, but no, not really. I guess it's not that important. Unless Jericho is going to beat Adam Cole, which I hope not. I pray to God he's not. But Roderick Strong, I guess, needed to win. But to what end? I don't know. They booked themselves into a corner with this one, because you put it in a situation where you couldn't end it a disqualification. Or you couldn't end it with a count out. That you had to end it with a pinfall. But you had 2 people who shouldn't be losing. Roderick Strong is new. He shouldn't lose. Jericho is in a feud where he abused a man's girlfriend right in front of him. He shouldn't be losing either. He should be building heat. So that guy can get over by kicking his ass. But instead, what they chose to do was to blow off some of that heat by having Jericho get pinned by the guy's homeboy. Look, I'm just here observing. I don't know why the Jericho Appreciation Society, why they respect the rules so much. Why weren't they outside? Where were they at? I didn't see them all night. Where did they go? Now, don't get me wrong, I ain't complaining that the Jericho Appreciation Society didn't show up. What I am saying is, why are the heels following the rules? Why aren't the heels trying to find a way to cheat? Why was Roderick Strong the one leading Jericho outside, and Jericho should have been smart enough to know better? I don't know. I don't get this. The match was fun for what it was. A lot of chops. Roderick Strong likes to chop. Jericho doesn't look like he likes to be chopped, but he's willing to tolerate it. So, at least for this point in time. So, I think they could have had a good singles match, but they chose to make it this. So, it was this. Next, Jay Whitehall and Ricky Starks had a really good match that ended in disqualification as that bum Juice Robinson brought a chair into the ring. Ricky Starks ended up getting it and hitting Jay White with the chair. The match up to the point of disqualification was very solid. The Rochambeau counter with the eye rake was pretty good. Juice Robinson tripping Ricky Starks, and it almost ended in a Blade Runner, which ends up getting countered into a schoolboy roll-up, was actually very good. Very exciting stuff here. So this was eye-catching. And this was probably the most eye-catching match that they had of the night. Because I genuinely like both guys. And I do think that if you were going to do a disqualification, this match probably should have gone on first. That's just me, though. I just definitely think that if you're going to do a disqualification in this match, which I'm perfectly fine with that, do it first. Having this to be the in-ring main event and it ended in disqualification feels very WWE to me. I cannot stand that. If you're going to give people a disappointing finish, and it's not like it's a world champion or anything like that, or it's for a title. It's literally just I hate to put it this way, 2 mid-card acts, or 2 upper mid-card acts. You could have put them on first, and went ahead and got rid of that. and save something that actually matters for the main event, since you were going to do Don Callis' thing anyway. So let's go into that. Don Callis closed the show, very WWE, with Don Callis closing the show. He gets in the ring. The crowd is chanting, "Piece of shit, piece of shit." I think they actually mean it. I don't think they like this Don Callis fella. Don Callis says that he's the real victim, that he did all sorts of things for Kenny Omega, and that without him, there is no Kenny Omega. So at that point, Kenny Omega starts trying to come to the ring. He ends up fighting with Don Callis' security, because everybody's fighting security these days. It's just a real important angle to do in wrestling now, is to have putties. Like, they need to start bringing out the Ricky Steamboat ninjas so they can beat them up. Anyway, Kenny Omega is trying to fight through the security guards. He ends up getting beat up from behind by the Blackpool Combat Club. Now, earlier in the night, the Blackpool Combat Club had beat up the Young Bucks. They just basically surrounded them and beat them up. The Young Bucks, of course, bitched up a little bit, like, "Come on, guys, we don't want to fight," and then threw their luggage at them. Tough guys threw their dirty underwear at these guys. Anyway, the Blackpool Combat Club mowed over the Elite. Moxley got on the microphone, told Kenny Omega not to get up. This was his final warning. The BCC is the real Elite in AEW. Then the Young Bucks joined Kenny Omega on the stage. They brought some weapons, and then they brought out Hangman Adam Page, who was wearing an eye patch. And Hangman Page joins the Elite, and they run off the Blackpool Combat Club. The crowd is going nuts. I'm even nodding my head like, yeah, okay, this is very well done. Okay, I like this. Now, I do have one critique of this. What happened to the Japanese guy? Where did he go? Like, he got stabbed in the head 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. We ain't seen him since. So, I mean, I thought that's who it was going to be. Because to be quite honest, I wasn't even thinking about Adam Page. I thought it was going to be the Elite and Takeshita, and I thought they were going to elevate him by putting him with the Elite. But apparently, no. They're going to, I guess, probably put Takeshita, turn him heel or whatever. But I'd have thought it would have been a nice little spot for him. But this works fine. This works even better, to be quite honest, because they've been looking for a way to get Hangman Page back into the fold. And this works, they are forced to reforge their relationship from a threat from the outside. And this works. I like this. This closing angle was very good. So 2 weeks straight, they've nailed the closing angle of AEW Dynamite. And I got to give them credit for it. They did a really good job. A lot of people think that the Elite angle is now the best thing in wrestling. I think with the bow tie that was put on the Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio story, and that the Bloodline story has started to sort of run out of gas, that this has become one of the better storylines in wrestling, and probably the most exciting. In terms of the heel turn with Don Callis, they haven't put Don Callis with the Blackpool Combat Club yet. It's not official, like he's with them, but they're leaning in that direction. But they also lean things that it could not be. For instance, it could be that Don Callis is going to partner up with Takeshita, and Takeshita is going to turn heel. So there's a lot of options that they got there to play with, and that's good. The fact that they taken time from doing all these stupid fucking matches to do story stuff is good. Even though it does revolve around the Elite, which almost once a year, the Elite takes some time for themselves to do a storyline that's all about them. And since they're, like I said, they're the emotional core of the program, that's why you can't fire them. I know a lot of people want the Elite to be fired. You can't fire them. They're the emotional core of the show. Even if you don't like them, like I don't even like them, and I can admit that. Most of the people in the audience are fans of the Elite. So when you play with people's emotions that way, the whole thing with Adam Page being kicked out, him being ostracized. Then Kenny Omega going on his nightmare run. Then Kenny Omega trying to make a return. The reuniting of the Elite, with the Trios Championships. Even the stuff where they all got suspended together. Then Hangman becoming world champion, doing his own thing. And then slowly but surely trying to find his way back to who his friends are. This is really good stuff. It's a really good character arc they've been doing with the Elite. And it's actually not bad because they spread it out over so much time. Now, the problem with this is in between, there was not a lot of storytelling being done. But when they all get together, it really works. So I do think they have taken over the Bloodline angle as being the best story in wrestling so far. But it's mainly because the Bloodline angle stalled out. Not just because Cody won, but because they refuse to do anything other than Sami Zayn fights the Bloodline. We've been doing this since February. At least AEW looks like something is moving forward. The Blackpool Combat Club, despite Wheeler Yuta, they look like a legitimate force. You got Danielson, you got Claudio, you got Mox. These guys look, Claudio by himself is a threat, But then you got Moxley, who's willing to bleed, he's willing to fight, he's willing to bite, he's willing to do whatever. And then you got, Danielson, if he even decides to get involved, who's, of course, technical master, can do anything in the ring. And then you got young upstart Yuta, who, is bland as oatmeal, but they need to have another body on that side. So I do enjoy I'm enjoying the Elite stuff. And the fact it is they're not cutting a lot of promos. So you're not hearing the weakness in their voices. You're just seeing how they relate to each other, which works for me. All right. So that's it for AEW. Double or Nothing still comes across as being a throwaway show, mainly because people are more concerned with Collision, Punk, and all in. So nobody really cares about Double or Nothing. The fact that they throwing a bunch of gimmick matches on this show, like the ladder match and the Battle Royal, means they probably have almost zero faith in being able to draw at this show. And I heard the ticket sales have been pretty slow for Double or Nothing. I think every Double or Nothing has been in Las Vegas so far, right? Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention that they're going to have an Anarchy in the Arena match, which, to be quite honest, there's really what's the difference between that and any other kind of Falls Count Anywhere scenario? There's no real difference. And I think this is truly the main event. I don't think the four pillars main event the show. I think you put them on in the middle. If we're being real, MJF, he fights these three guys. He fights them at like the 9:30 hour of the show. He gets that shit out of the way, and we make people wait for the Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club. I think that's your main event. All right. Thank you all for your time. I shall talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Bongo Slave.